Many people know the Coneheads as a family of aliens, but there's more truth to those sketches than you might have imagined. Were Coneheads real? Many anthropological digs have uncovered human skeletons with elongated skulls. But they weren't born that way. These real Coneheads come from many different civilizations. The custom of skull elongation involved binding the skulls of infants with wood or fabric. This artificial cranial deformation is also known as head flattening or head binding. It has been practiced for thousands of years, and some people believe that these conehead remains are separate species or even extraterrestrials. While that is certainly something to consider, the practice of skull elongation is well documented. Why someone would intentionally deform a child's skull in this manner is another question. What is the purpose of this ritual, and how did it come to be practiced by so many different cultures? Can it explain all the instances of this deformity that have been discovered? The Mangbetu tribe of Africa in particular styled their hair to emphasize their elongated skulls and make them look more beautiful. The skull elongation was a mark of beauty and status in the Congo region, which in turn inspired the hairstyles. The tradition was still practiced until the 1900s when it was outlawed by the government. Interestingly, the practice of skull elongation has been found in many people from a multitude of different and unconnected cultures. The Huns of Asia and the Chinookan tribes of North America all practiced it. Elongated skulls have also been discovered in Sonora, Mexico, and Victoria, Australia. Some cultures came up with unique hairstyles to emphasize the shape of their heads. The ancient Mayans were notorious for their cutting-edge fashion choices, which included jewels in their teeth, forehead elongation, and elaborate hairstyles to show off their heads. To emphasize the length of their foreheads, men would burn back their hair, while women would weave intricate braids and ribbons into their hair. Hair served to dress up an already elongated skull. Some of the oldest elongated skulls that have been found are the ones discovered in Australia. They are estimated to be about 14,000 years old. For years, the remains confused researchers, as the sloped foreheads contradicted the skulls of Homo sapiens alive at the time. Over the past few decades, it's become clear the remains are the earliest examples of skull elongation. An excavation of a burial site in Mexico found that many of the elongated skulls came from healthy children. Given their premature deaths, researchers believe the process may have been crude, imperfect, and lethal for children. The practice was developed by several cultures independently, instead of starting with one culture and then spreading. Evidence shows the practice is most concentrated in specific centers, then it tapers off as you get further away from the focal point. This suggests that different cultural centers developed the technique independently and then spread it to the surrounding areas. The Chinook people of North America reserved the practice of head flattening for the social elite. As a result, an elongated skull was an indication of a noble birth. Several different cultures operated under the belief that elongating the skull increased intelligence. This belief was reportedly held by the Scythians and tribes who lived on Malekula Island. With infants' skull was manipulated, either through rigorous massage or using various bandages, cords, or wood to bind the skull and help shape it. The skulls found in Peru are unique compared to other ancient elongated skulls. They have a cranium capacity of up to 25% larger and are up to 60% heavier than the average human skull. This cannot be a result of artificial cranial deformation. Preliminary DNA analysis of the skulls also found mitochondrial DNA that did not match anything yet discovered, but those findings have been disputed. Some cultures performed cranial elongation because they claimed they were instructed to by the gods. The Mayans believed this. When a human is at least a year old, that the skull begins to fuse into a single solid shape. This makes the heads of infants malleable, allowing head-binding techniques to work. Elongated skulls are often found in elaborate burial sites. In France, conehead skulls dating back 1,650 years were found in a burial site that seemed to belong to aristocrats. The tomb also contained pearls, gold pins, and a bronze mirror. The finding reinforces the belief that the practice was used to distinguish those with wealth and status. Some cultures wore pointed hats to emphasize the elongation of their skulls. Certain Egyptian royal families were known to practice artificial elongation, and they wore pointed hats to highlight their status. Head flattening is still occasionally practiced in Vanuatu, an island in the South Pacific, which is why one of the few places where skull elongation still occurs.